Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our show brought to you by Phil Cobble Fine Homes and Land. Folks, check out philcobblehomes.com to find some of the most exclusive properties in East Tennessee. Beautiful homes, beautiful property. Or if you're looking to sell your home, no one markets drone photography, professional videography, open houses like Phil and his team. $400 million in residential sales since 1980. Phil Cobble Fine Homes and Land. All right. Want to welcome in Mark Pankratz, former Vol assistant, former D1 basketball player himself at Milwaukee. Mark, Vols lost their fourth game in a row yesterday. It's been a completely different team without Kevin Punter. Ole Miss comes in, wins by 23 on senior day, Thompson-Boling. The Vols said goodbye to Kevin Punter, who was having a great year before he was injured. Armani Moore, Derek Reese, Devin Balkman. So congratulations to those young men and thank them for their contributions to the team. UT finishes 13-18. We said before the season, if they got anywhere near 500, that would be a good accomplishment. So 13-18, 6-12 in the league. You throw in Punter's injury over the last couple of weeks. How do you grade this season for Rick Barnes?
Well, I think you can piece it in different areas. I think offensively, I'd give us a B. I think at times we shot the ball too much, too many threes. But when you don't have an inside presence and you don't have playmakers, just because that's what the roster is, you don't have many other options. But and defensively, I was a little surprised. I thought we'd be better. That's what Coach Barnes has been known on. But on the court stuff, I'd give us a B. I think off the court, which we have to talk about, he gets an A. But just off, you have no issues with these guys. They're great players, great kids. And then on the recruiting side, I'd give us an incomplete.
Well, let's get into the recruiting. That's actually my second question for you.
Yeah.
So what's his overall grade?
Well, I think the overall grade right now is a B. I think the roster was depleted. He had the short time span to get a bunch of kids in here, but I think a B overall for this season in general.
We said at the beginning that people were setting the expectation way too high. There were people talking you could win 19, 20 games, and that was we said back at the time 500 is what you're aiming for, and if Punter doesn't go out, you probably finish 15 and 16, so you're right there.
Yeah, and people need to hear a B, not because we're happy with them finishing with the record they had. It's based off of expectations and what the roster was.
The curve, yeah. All right. We discussed Barnes' comment last week about Robert Hubbs and him saying, I don't have any expectations there anymore. All right, let's take that comment, mix it in with the record, 13-18, mix it in with all of the stuff that all of the UT coaches are facing right now with this lawsuit flying overhead and all the bad press. How tough will it be on the recruiting trail for Rick Barnes this year?
Well, I don't think it's going to be the allegations. I don't think are going to have a huge impact on it. I think the kids, because Barnes can separate himself from it, because a lot of this stuff was done or supposedly done prior to Barnes being here, so he can separate himself from that. I think playing time is a big part of it. The pieces that they need, there's a lot of playing time there at the bigs position, so I think they'll be able to recruit. But the thing about it is, say a Hubbs leaves, or say he just doesn't pan out next year. The way the recruiting world works, even though Barnes didn't recruit him, coaches are going to use that against him and say, hey, look, you're a really good player, high school senior about to graduate. Why go play for this guy? Look what happened with Robert Hubbs. He didn't have the career you're supposed to have. But on the other side, Barnes will use the Kevin Durant's and those type of guys. But I think recruiting-wise, he'll be okay. But that's the biggest question mark still out there about this staff.
How long can you go out there and continue to use Texas as a calling card?
Well,
I would think it would diminish a little bit year by year.
Yeah, right now it's Kevin Punter. You'll use that because you'll say, all right, how do you want to get? Do you want to get to the NBA or do you want to become a better player? Look at what I did in a short period of time with a guy like Kevin Punter, because that's who is more current to these players out there.
Okay. Last thing, next season's team. Let's look. We'll talk about the tournament a little later in the show briefly, but looking ahead to next year, do you think there are major improvements on the horizon, or do you see another one like this year, another year of struggle?
Another one like this year. I think it's year 3 that you got to be looking at. I think you saw signs even of Ray Kasango yesterday.
Yep.
But the foundation's being set, and that's what's exciting with Schofield, Ray, Kyle Alexander, Shambari Phillips, and Lamonte Turner. That's the foundation that year 3, I think you're talking about potential NCAA tournament.
Turner should make a big difference next year.
Big time.
Having him in there. It's a shame he couldn't play this year. All right. Mark Pankratz, thank you very much. We'll have you back a little later in the show. Get your odds on the Vols and Lady Vols and their tournament hopes. We'll discuss that later in the show when we come back. 5 fill-in-the-blank questions about UT football as we enter spring practice. Come on back on the Sports Source.